At Ontario Shores Centre for Mental Health Sciences, we take great pride in the recovery stories of our patients and their families. We share these stories throughout the hospital and on our online communities frequently. Recently, we sat down with 3 people who had shared their stories to gain a better understanding of what the experience was like for them and the impact that it had on others. Here's what they shared with us. Chelsea is a sweet teenage girl who has overcome bullying and social media bullying while learning to live with depression, anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorder. She first shared her story on Mindvine during National Mental Health Week. It is now featured on the cover of this year's Ontario Shores annual report. When you put pen and paper and we worked on your story, before it was sent out to everybody, what did you think of it at that point? Like seeing it for the first time in your hands, like what was that experience like?
It was odd. It was like I had experienced this and it made me sound so strong. And I didn't realize how much I went through until I saw it on paper.
Okay, so you talked about what life was like on social media when you were kind of in the height of everything and before you came to Ontario Shores. And so we come up to you with this idea and we're going to put it on social media and we're going to, you're going to be pretty honest about your story. How did that make you feel? Like, were you apprehensive about putting it out there?
Definitely. I was scared that people from my old town, since I had moved, were going to twist my words in a way that made them seem like the victim, because I've seen them do it multiple times to other people. But turned out that the people that watched me getting shoved into the creek, getting punched, shared my story and then messaged me with an apology about how they felt bad and how they're suffering from mental illness currently, or how they're being bullied currently, and how they wish they stood up for me, which was kind of a shock, I'd say, because I hadn't talked to these people since I left, which was like a year ago.
Online or in person or like in your unit, from staff, like what's been the reaction since you went public?
On social media, it has been really awesome because I'd shared it on Facebook, and I guess some of my friends read it, like who I was friends with, and they shared it. And then people I didn't know started sharing it from the link I posted, so I could see who was sharing it, and I didn't know half these people, but it made me feel good. And then on Twitter, I tweeted about it, and I saw a bunch of my followers, I have 1,500 something followers, and half of them had tweeted the link. And I was really shocked that I was getting such positive feedback.
So the reaction from other peers, you mentioned a few online, were there other people who came up to you or got in touch with you somehow?
Yeah, I didn't know anyone from my school at all. I had known my brother's friends and a girl that lived on my street, but I didn't know anyone else. And so random kids in the school, it started with the Stomp Out Stigma team. They had read it, and they approached me and said how strong I was and how I'd inspired a couple of kids to come to them and get help and go to the hospital inpatient program, which is at Lakeridge. And then my teachers started coming up to me, and teachers I had never met before or actually talked to before started talking to me about the story.
Matthew started hearing voices and became delusional shortly after immigrating to Canada with his wife and daughters. Featured on The Wave, Mindvine, and the annual report, Matthew's recovery story has received quite a bit of attention around the hospital.
Why did you decide to share your story?
Because
I feel that there was a need to share my story and my recovery and my position on the doctors, nurses, and the staff here, how wonderful a job they're doing. And it was my own experience as being a beneficial one to me. So I thought that it might benefit others to hear how I came to this position of being well.
When you were going through kind of your darkest moments, do you think seeing a story of somebody like yours would have helped at all, or?
Well, yes, because it would have shown me that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, when you first start out here, it was 6 years ago, I first came to Ontario Shores. Man, I was a mess. I was ill. I was hearing things. I was seeing things. I was a mess, and I don't know whether I was depressed, but I definitely had dark days, and yeah. It was beneficial. It would have been beneficial to hear other people's stories, definitely.
What's been the reaction from staff or patients in your unit around the hospital?
Well, the reaction has been positive. A lot of people have read the story and seen me on the wave, and yeah, they've been positive. And it's like a standing joke, oh, you're famous, but I'm not really famous. I just did something to help other people. That I don't want no accolades or praise for that. I did it, because it's a good thing to do.
Rhonda's family was in crisis when she was greeted by staff and volunteers at our Family Resource Center. She received valued support and is now giving back as a volunteer at Ontario Shores. She first shared her story at the volunteer celebration dinner and has since contributed to Mindvine and other communications projects. First of all, what was your initial thought when you were asked to share your story and talk about your family?
I guess my initial thought was that I was, kind of scared, really. Maybe a little embarrassed. It's a very private thing that, to be asked to share that, I had to ask myself, was this really, an important thing to share what I've gone through? And I believe it really was.
So having gone through it now and made that decision, what's the reaction been?
Well, I'm very happy I did, because it's made me feel stronger and pay more attention to the way, I'm doing things with my daughter and my family, and it's made me feel really good about helping others that are in the position that I was and questioning whether or not they should come forward or look for help for themselves.
Going back to when, before you came to the Family Resource Center, when you talked about, your family was kind of in a dark place at that time, your family was in crisis. Maybe before then or in around that time, if you had saw somebody like yourself, sharing their story that resonated with you, do you think you might have made a move sooner? Do you think it would have had an impact on your decision making?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't know what I was looking for at that point, but I knew I was looking for some help, somebody to kind of just grab hold of me and say, here's some hope for you. Here's some strength. And there just wasn't anything there. And if we can get more of these stories out there, maybe we'll catch more people sooner before your family situations get too unbearable.
Inspiring stories indeed. Thank you to Chelsea, Matthew, Rhonda, and those at Ontario Shores who assisted in the telling of these stories of discovery, recovery, hope.